Happy Passover 2026. I'm not quite there. The night of April 1st, 2026. Sunset in my area is 7:14 p.m. Right now it is 5:34 p.m. So I was like, what am I studying? What am I up to? I came across some content lately. I've been liking studying a bit about what Samaritans believe. Just kind of came up as an interesting thing. Like, I don't know. I started studying about gypsies and then witchcraft, gypsy kind of marriages, and then from there, I don't know how I got to Samaritans from there. I really, it would be interesting to see what my browser history looked like between those two things. But I guess last night was like the second night that it was kind of like on my radar, because I realized I was like, there's really not a lot of content. Like, there's one YouTuber who's providing most of the content. He looks like a young guy who provides most of the cultural experiences, and he lives in the neighborhood, and I don't know, a community. I don't know if you call it a neighborhood. I don't know, but I guess they have this place called Mount Gerizim. It's in Israel. I don't know exactly the whereabouts specifically, but I think it's believed by them that it's the place where Isaac was going to get sacrificed by Abraham, and the I think there's like another. I think it's believed like the area where Adam and Eve were banished from the garden to that area. So I don't really know much about it at all, and especially with kind of the limited content that I'm coming across. I've heard about this Gnostic Gospel of Judas, which sounds interesting, and then I've kind of heard about just some differences, like, I mean, a lot of differences, like the texts they read are like a different type of Hebrew script, and like their chanting, but their kind of cantillations and things are like way different sounding. They believe that they're like the original, I don't know what, somewhere I read that they're technically older than Judaism. I guess they don't have that whole rabbinical Judaism. I think they do have Torah and the laws of Moses, but I guess they don't really pay too much attention to the other Hebrew scriptures nor the New Testament at all. I don't know to what extent they might pay any attention to the other rest of the Hebrew scriptures or Old Testament. I haven't gotten that far. And I was like, oh, I wonder how I've just been picking up on little things that are different, but it turns out to be completely different. And it's kind of interesting because in the Bible, the only stories I really know about Samaritans are the one Jesus told. I guess it was a parable. I don't know if it was real or a parable about the Good Samaritan. And then there's this other parable about, this other encounter with like a Samaritan woman at the well or something like that. And there was kind of this difference between Samaritans and Jews to a point that even, in Jesus' time, there was like a distinction within some of the texts made about you know just like some kind of cultural. Uh, you could tell that there was some kind of a cultural divide or some kind of a cultural divide or um, I don't know if there seemed to be some kind of contention. I just don't know what it was. But enough that it came up a couple times. And that's all I was ever taught was like either the Jews didn't like Samaritans or the Samaritans didn't like the Jews. But I kind of just thought, oh, like maybe it's because they came from like a different kind of lineage. I don't know what I thought, but I think it is. I think they do call it like an ethno-religion. Like you are like born into it, and so in Samaritan culture, I guess there aren't enough men, or there aren't enough women. Maybe I don't know which. I think it's maybe there aren't enough women for every man, and so one of the, I think the priests are one of the main head people in the community. I guess they're like 900 people, they're saying, in the community, and I guess the head person let his son, like, I guess if they have like a hierarchy of priests or something, this would be like whoever's kind of like in charge of all of the community for the most part. It looks like he let his son marry a Ukrainian non-Samaritan woman, and that kind of opened the comfort zone for other men to do a lot of. I've heard about them doing marriages between the Ukraine with Samaritan men marrying Ukrainian women. But I guess they do have to convert or something. But a lot of the content I've seen, there doesn't seem to be women. I think I've seen one video where there was a son, a daughter, a wife, and a husband, and they were kind of talking about how they're prioritizing their son being able to get married. I think the sister's maybe a little older, but I think she's kind of getting the message that there seems to be some kind of pressure. I don't know how old these videos are, but it seems to be like there was some kind of pressure for her to make sure her brother is gonna make sure he gets married. And I think he has more. Maybe he has two sisters, and like there was some conversation. It was an interesting conversation. I didn't listen to it all because the family seemed to be pretty heated about it. It seemed like a very passionate discussion, and I was kind of like, this is a little intense. But I kind of got the idea that they were. Marriage is a topic that does seem concerning, especially when you have like a religion that you're born into it. When you start intermarrying and you have all of these traditions and things, people are going to bring their other traditions with them, or their lifestyle, or their beliefs. Like, these are adults marrying adults. Like, adults have had some time to kind of like live within their own culture, before, even if they leave and go get married to someone else, to another culture. They're not like little babies where they're like not really gonna maybe remember, like they're grown, so they're gonna have their cultural things. Even if they do convert, there's still gonna be ideas and foods and ways of cooking and different things that like intermingle between cultures and different countries. Like, it's not like they're even from the same countries and languages and different things. So it would be interesting to see in like the next couple generations kind of how that community is looking from about 900 now. I'm wondering in about 15 to 30 years, what the community is gonna look like. It's kind of interesting to think about. But yeah, I was looking at some of their Passover content and seeing that they use a sheep sacrifice. It looks like the community all gathers. The clip I saw, there were like bleachers in the background. Most of the people I saw standing in the kind of closed off region where they were gonna do the sacrifices. It looks like there was a spot for sacrificing at an altar. There were these pits with fire that were like, they're called like ovens of some kind, where they cook the sheep after it's been slaughtered. And then there were like these bleachers on like the ovens were like the closest to the camera. Like the camera was on the other side of this like barrier, like a light fence. And then there were probably, from what I could see, maybe like 5 pits or so. They were like they looked like they were very well created. Like they're very like round, and like they had like metal tops to them that were like slid off to the side, and like it was probably metal inside of there. I don't really know, but it seemed like these pits were like perfectly like circular and like probably dug out in a way that were like, it was probably really like, I don't think it was like they're just digging a hole and like throwing the sheep in there and like letting it bake. Like I've seen cultures do that where they do it like underground, like in the leaves. I'm not saying there's anything really wrong with it, but I'm just saying like these look more like even. It wasn't just like dig a pit, like dig a hole, just like, it seemed kind of more like, how would you say that? Like they wanted it to look like a certain aesthetic. Like it was, you know, it looks like they reused the area. So the bleachers were off to like the far right, kind of facing inward. So looking from where the pits are, if you looked over to like the, what would be technically, you'd be standing in the bottom left corner of a square. The bleachers would be in the top right corner, kind of diagonal from where the camera was, and the bleachers were pointing inward, facing towards the top left corner, kind of. And then somewhere between the top right and top left corner of that square area that was blocked off, he said there's like a space where they're gonna do the praying. And everyone was wearing white. And the other videos I saw, people were wearing this kind of, men were wearing white, but this kind of like rounded kind of like cap. And they were wearing white, but it looked like the garment looked like a thobe, like kind of like the Muslim thobe. I don't think I'd be able to tell the difference. I didn't get a close look at it. And then it seems like some kind of pants, white pants underneath. And I think they wear this on the Sabbath or whenever they're going to their temples to pray and stuff. So I've learned, I guess, some about the Sabbath too, is that I guess they have Friday sundown at night, and then they have Friday sundown at night, they have Saturday, they wake up at like 3 or 4 or so and go to temple in the morning for, I guess that's the service. So they're waking up that early, and then they go back, I guess, to close out the Sabbath Saturday night. So they have maybe 3 time periods where they're doing stuff, but one of them so early in the morning. didn't see any women at that service. Most of the footage I've seen has been mostly men. Other than that family that I saw in their own home, I don't think I saw many more women than that. Maybe the women were over on the bleachers. I couldn't really tell because the people over on the bleachers weren't really wearing white. But in the Passover setup that they were kind of preparing in this video, the men had all white on, but they weren't wearing that rounded, like, tall, red cap. They were wearing like a white, it looked more like a white kippah, a white yarmulke of some kind, like a flat kind of head covering. I don't know what the women do or what they wear. They didn't seem to be there. I don't know who all was there, but there seems to be like there's some kind of order to a service that looks like that. I've seen some things about their Sukkot that looks different. They had some like fruits that were like combined to be like coming from like some kind of decorative ceiling decoration that they make with a bunch of fruits and stuff and lights and little glittery things. I don't know what that signifies. I don't know the differences. But they do celebrate Passover as commemoration of the exodus of the Israelites out of Egypt, and to celebrate the exodus, and I don't really know if the sheep sacrifice, I don't know if they have some kind of kosher laws. I do think that they do have a form of kosher laws, but I don't know how it is in compared to Jewish kosher laws. The services that they have that looks like the Sabbath service, it almost looks like a mosque. Like if I wouldn't have known just by the look of the people going in, I would have, I guess what would distinguish it from a mosque for me, just looking, there were maybe more chairs around and pillows and things than what I would have, or like cushions that I might have seen, than what I might have seen at like a regular kind of a mosque from the ones that I've seen in videos. I've never been in one. I've never been in a Samaritan temple either, like a synagogue. I don't really know about it, but I don't even know where there would be one. Like, it sounds to me like a lot of them live over in that area. I mean, I think that they are allowed to spread out and live wherever, but I don't think I've ever met anybody that I knew outwardly that identified as a Samaritan or anything like that. Like, I really don't think I know anyone. Maybe I do, and they just never said anything about their heritage, but I can't recall having known anyone or currently knowing anybody who is a part of the culture. What I've learned so far, it sounds pretty cool. I kind of like things that are like, where there's this offshoot, where one religion becomes some other thing, but then there's like this commonality, and I'm wondering where they kind of split off, like where Judaism starts and where Samaritan religion starts. I do think they go by another name. I've heard they go by a different type of a name. It's not Samaritan. They don't call themselves Samaritans, I don't think. I don't remember what the word is that they use, but I could be wrong about that. That's just what I interpreted it to be. I kind of like Okay, so I guess some other things. They have like a mezuzah, but their mezuzah. Oh, I forgot to keep talking about. I was basically just gonna say their mezuzah is written in their Hebrew script, and it's not like in a little container. It's like actually written out like big enough that you could like see it. But I was gonna say distinguishing, I guess, what a mosque seems to look like overall compared to like a Samaritan synagogue. There is a lot of floor seating. I didn't see anything with like women in the back or women in a balcony or anything like that. Like there was no visible woman at all to what I saw. Um, it's different, I guess. Everybody wearing white, that's pretty different, and everybody wearing this type of cap, that type of cap is different. I know in Islam there are some different head garb types of traditions depending on the country, so that was one thing where I was kind of like, oh, maybe they're like maybe some other country might wear something like that. But I don't really know how they get them or why they get them or what specifically they're for or if they signify something. Not 100% of the guys have them on, but I don't know if it's when they come of age they get one. I think they do have a bar mitzvah. I don't know if they have a bat mitzvah, but I think they do have a bar mitzvah. They have a lot of chanting. Now, I don't know if their chanting is the same thing as like Jewish prayers. I wasn't sure what they were doing in their synagogue Sabbath service. I wasn't sure what that was. But to me, what it sounded like was a very long amount of chants in a very calming, melodic method that 2 nights in a row I listened to that and fell asleep right away. And I think the guy who was filming the video, he, what's his name? The Clat or something like that. Clatt. Something like that. He has all these videos around Israel that he does with various cultures. And so, he has a video with this guy, who's a Samaritan kind of YouTuber, and he kind of invites him to go do different things. And so yeah, that's where you see him in the synagogue, and he's kind of they're kind of all chanting the same chant. There's no, like, I would say from the mosque services I've seen online, the mosque services, other than the prayers that they do and the recitation of the Quran that they do in Arabic with the melodies, other than that, there is a bit of a church vibe, and the sitting on the floor part of kneeling and bowing on the floor and things. Like churches generally have seats. Mosques, it seems like they don't tend to have a lot of seats. Like if you can't, if you have a problem with sitting on the floor, there's a seat. But if you can, it seems like you're supposed to be either standing, kneeling, or sitting on the floor. And no shoes on. I think both of those different religious sites had the same no shoe policy. At churches, all the churches I know, you wear shoes. But it did, like the mosque that I've seen with their services, they do tend to seem to have like a sermon, maybe something about the Quran, some kind of a lesson. This Samaritan service just seems like people come in and they all just do this whole entire set of memorized scriptures. I couldn't tell if it was like different people going up and like leading. From what it looked like, everybody was facing the wall, including the person who was leading. And there's like this scripture on the wall written in their script. They do have a Torah. It looks different than the Jewish ones overall like a big scroll, but it's like decorated differently than what I've typically seen. Um, and it's pretty. I don't know. Like I mean, they read it. It sounds different. I don't know 100%. I'm wondering if their scrolls, if their Torah scrolls are written in their type of Hebrew script. It's not the same type of Hebrew writing. Like I couldn't read it. I've looked a little bit at the names of the letters. A lot of them seem to have the same names. I don't know if the words mean the same exact words, but it is like another ancient type of Hebrew writing. I think it is considered a type of Hebrew, but it's not the type that's modern or even what you see in Jewish biblical Hebrew. It's not the same type of writing. I don't know if the pronunciations are the same, if it's the same language or not. It doesn't sound the same to me. I don't really know, but it doesn't sound the same to me. I've heard people speaking it in the videos a little bit, and I'm like, the accent is different. Some of the words are like overlapped, but it's not too it's not too obvious. Like what the differences are specifically. Like yeah, the YouTube presence is definitely a lot smaller. I guess all this time I thought Samaritans were Jews. I don't think I didn't know that they weren't Jews. I don't think I knew what they were. I just knew that there was some kind of like, you know, disagreeing of some kind between the two cultures to a point where Jesus made a point out of it. But and it came up a couple times in the Gospels. But there were a lot of variations of people back then. It seems like there were a lot of cultures overlapping that we don't really think about. There were Romans, there were Jews, but there were, I guess, the Pharisees that I guess would convert to what is today like the Orthodox. And then you'd have the Sadducees that I don't really know what, if there's an equivalent there. You'd have the Christians eventually come out of somewhere. But while Jesus is still on earth, you mostly have Jewish people that are kind of interested in what Jesus has to say, or John the Baptist. I guess the Mandeans come out of John the Baptist tradition. So I don't know what they're considered. I don't remember if they're Iraqi or Iranian, but they come out of that tradition, and I think they're another religion that's ethnic. So I don't know if they're considered Jewish or Christian or what they'd be considered, because they have this like, I don't know what their book is, I forgot, but this Mandean stuff, I don't really know. Like, I think they take Easter pretty seriously. They take baptism extremely seriously. I don't know what other holidays they practice or what books they read or follow, and how similar it is to Christianity, Islam, or Judaism. I really don't know. But it kind of came out of John the Baptist, and then Christianity of a form came out of Jesus, but not necessarily that early. Like Christianity, when Jesus was on earth, I guess wasn't really called Christianity yet. It was kind of called the Way or something like that, and they seemed, there were disciples, there were the women, the Pharisees and Sadducees and the scribes who were kind of like they were kind of constantly at the necks of these other people following the way, and kind of the people following John the Baptist as well. And a lot of people seem to know about John the Baptist. And yeah, Jesus was getting almost killed on a regular basis. He had to flee multiple times. It seems like, at least it sounds like they were saying often that the scribes and Pharisees were setting out to kill Jesus or try to like entrap him or something at a certain point. But I don't know, there is this other Jewish rabbi who disputes that and says that information about the bloody court and stuff like that, where he talks about that it's supposed to be somewhere in Mato or something, or Makot, I don't remember which Talmud tractate it's supposed to talk about the amount that it takes to need to actually resort to killing somebody for breaking the commandments is not usually what would have normally been happening at that time, and that's not something that I don't really know. I've heard one person say this who would probably have a motive to say that, but I also I couldn't find what he was citing, but that's also like I'm not like so educated with some of that stuff he was citing that I would really know. And you know, I guess the Sanhedrin was supposed to determine, you know, the judgments, and it doesn't seem like they had often determined judgments that people would be put to death. According to him, he says it's like a bloody court means that somebody was put to death based on not following the commandments, and the judges decided, within the Jewish judges, decided that that person needs to be put to death for breaking those laws, or whatever the law might have been. So 77 years between, like, if there was at least one death every 77 years, that was considered a bloody court, and he states that there's no history of a bloody court in that time period, meaning that they didn't count it as the Jewish leadership trying to put Jesus to death. But I don't know, that kind of opens up room for conspiracy theories, that's for sure, but I really don't know. Like, I don't know how to say one way or the other, but it does sound like there could have been some potential plot. That's why the Romans got involved with this. How there was maybe potentially some scheming, so it's like, well, if we make it so these other people kill him, because crucifixion wasn't really like a Jewish method of killing, that was like a Roman execution, torturing. They got it so that the Romans leadership allowed the people to decide who was going to condemn him, and that he was condemned. But then people also say that there's no history in the Roman books of that occurrence happening. So I don't know. I don't know if there's no history of it. I mean, what do you do with something like that if there's no history? Or is there a history? I don't know, but there might be a history of it. But I might go through this Gospel of Judas tonight if it's not too creepy and weird. I might try to find a couple more Samaritan videos to watch how they do more about Passover. I've kind of liked the content that I've come across about their culture, though. The chanting's very relaxing. Some of it, they do try to teach it to you online a little bit. There's a little bit of educational chanting with, I guess, the interpretations, but I'm wondering if they're chanting scriptures. Like, what's the history of these chants? Like, what are they saying? Why did it in the video take from, like, it seemed like in the video I watched with the time lapse, it may have taken about 90 minutes of their early morning service of just straight up chanting the whole way through. Like, there's no speeches, there's no lectures, there's no greeting, there's no offering, there's no nothing. It was just, to me, at least what he captured on video was just the chanting. And it was a 28-minute video total, and it felt like a large portion of that was chanting. So, but it was relaxing enough that I knocked out twice. I knocked out right away, and I do not sleep easily, so I wouldn't mind listening to it again tonight, even for a third night. I was like, this is very pleasant. And so far it hasn't given me any creepy dreams or any weird experiences. I did have a dream last night about it, though, and I did kind of talk about it, but from what I remember, I could kind of talk about it. It was basically, I'm there at, I don't know if it was that YouTuber who's the main one who keeps showing people the culture. It was either him or somebody like that who was having some kind of gathering at their place, and most of this dream I spent time on this back patio that was kind of connected to maybe like a little space in their house for like prayers. It was kind of like a dimly lit back patio. Most of the light coming to the patio was from the light that was from the windows inside the house. And there was a small back patio, just like literally the concrete portion was like connected to like right where you would have walked out of the house. So it's right next to a couple of the walls. Similar to the layout of my own backyard, but it didn't look the same at all. It was just a small patio enclosure. So the house portion would have been almost like an L, and then the concrete would have been like a kind of square concrete outside. Maybe have a sliding door to get there, or a door of some kind to get out there, to this like rectangular patio. And then there's just like a gate on one side, so there's only one, well, there's a gate on the other L, one gate and then another gate, and one of the gate sides opens up to a patio, or to a driveway, but it was kind of sunnier outside. And in the dream, I've got this like metal bucket of some kind that has something that's almost like a coffee can in it, and it's supposed to be hooked up to something like water or electric or something, but it's like a gift for the family or something. And it's kind of big and clunky, and it's got a nozzle on the top of the can part that kind of protrudes out, almost like a little hose, kind of like a small little garden hose. So it's kind of crooked a little bit, but it's not a hose, it's like black. Everything on that is black. And then it's got this cap on the end of like what would be like the nozzle of the hose. It's got this kind of metallic aluminum cap, kind of similar to what's on like wine, or like some of those types of, if you've had like some types of like Japanese canned coffee It has like a twist off cap. Not the ones where you pop the tab, but like the twist off cap. It's kind of like a twist off cap, but like a metallic one. And there was something like that screwed onto the end of the hose nozzle. And then I'm trying to debate in this dream if I'm gonna go with this hose and go and give it to these people. Somebody in the back was like making me a smoothie. It was like a cream peach swirl with like mango or some other color. It had some like orange fruits kind of swirled into some kind of like ice cream or something. And I was ready to drink that. And I was kind of waiting to drink it. But then this, I guess some lady comes out and starts talking to me. And I'm like, you know, I've been there a while and witnessed a couple services. And I know if I keep talking to this lady, you know, the time is gonna, you know, come very soon where I'm gonna be asked to stay for this next service. So I'm wondering, you know, maybe I should just call an Uber so that I can get the Uber to come get me, and I'll have an easy excuse to just be like, oh, I actually ended up calling a ride, and so I've got to go. My ride's already here. Or leave if she keeps talking. Just try to leave and feel a little rude about it, but leave before the service starts, because it would be even more rude to leave during the service. And I really didn't want to stay for another long service, and so I was like, let me just leave. And I go out in the driveway at some point in this dream. That's how I know it was like sunnier out in the driveway. And I'm kind of out there, maybe with one other person, kind of leaning against this kind of old, like 1950s kind of Chevy looking car. And there's a couple kind of in the car, kind of like flirting, talking. And one of them is like a Samaritan guy and a Samaritan woman. And I'm out there with like a friend or something. And we're all just kind of hanging out in the driveway. We're kind of all talking to each other, but those two are kind of talking to each other more. And I figure like, oh, like they're probably trying to like date or something. Maybe they like each other. I wasn't really sure. But I was just thinking like, oh, I hope it works out, because I know like the community is trying to like marry each other. Like they're trying to find good match weddings, spouses for each other in the community if they can too. So that was kind of on my mind. But then like I kind of woke up. So that was my weird dream. I was up this morning at like 5 a.m. I can't tell if that dream was from 5 a.m. Because I did kind of doze back off again at 5 a.m. or if that dream was from the night before. Yeah, but I do remember it still. Even though it's evening, I still remember it from this morning, so that's interesting. But yeah, it was kind of, I wasn't really too stressed. It was just kind of weird. But I don't know, part of me looks out for dreams and stuff. I know it's kind of like a weird thing that I talk about, but it's like, if I were watching all that kind of content and then started having like a really strange, like odd dream, I probably would run away from that content and be like, you know, just kind of be like, oh, like, let me not lean into this, you know. Like, I'm not trying to like become Samaritan or whatever. I just, you know, like to know random stuff. It's interesting to me, and especially when holidays come up, I'm like, oh, I wonder what, I like to see like what's different with different people's groups. I guess something with their culture that does come up is like the West Bank. I think there is another side to their like holy area of their mountain where in one video the guy did point to like an area where he was like, there's a refugee camp over there, but I think it was maybe not on their holy site. I think it was like outside of the community's property, like maybe on another mountain or like in the valley behind it or whatever. I don't really know though, like where exactly he was pointing and how close it would have been that there'd be like a refugee camp. And I guess he did mention a story where unfortunately, I guess Samaritans do get Arab and Israeli identification, but he got into a situation once where he accidentally forgot part of his identification. He brought one, not the other, and went to an area where he had to cross the opposite checkpoint for what ID he had. And I don't know if it was a checkpoint or somebody was just like holding him up, but he got held at gunpoint. And I guess what saved him was like, he says he's Samaritan, and then he says that like, I guess his last name is Cohen, and then his first name is something that I thought sounded like an Arab name, but it's not an Arab name. And I guess people over there would know that, so he's like, it's not an Arab name. So he didn't get in trouble. But I'm kind of interested in their priestly system, how it differs. I did learn something reading that Rabbi Jesus book, where they were talking about the Levites, the people from that tribe. They would have, the people who get these sacrifices, the people working in these temples, they would have had access to more meat in a day than most other types of Jewish tribes would have had, typically in their diet in a year. And they were maybe bigger because they were raised eating a lot of meat, and they were like bigger in stature, and probably had more like muscle development and height and stuff compared to like these other the Jews. And so I guess they were trying to talk about this whole temple system that goes on with Judaism. I never really considered the economic and like aspect of like diet and the stature that people might have from better diet, or I'm not saying that just because they ate meat it's better diet, but like it doesn't sound like they had any food insecurity because people had to they got to eat the sacrifices, a portion of it. They were getting bread. They were like, if you think of all these loaves of bread and all these birds that are getting sacrificed, all these other like beasts that are getting sacrificed, the oil, the grains, like they basically have a lot of food security and excess. Compared to other people, because people have to bring it to them. Like that is the payment, pretty much. And when you think of how much food these people are, how many animals these people are sacrificing a day, or a week, or whatever, I mean that's a lot, it's hard to really think about a culture that is based on like sacrifices to atone for your sins. Because it's like you have multiple family members too, and not everybody's raising animals, so they have to like buy them. And there's no way a ram and a goat and all that is going to be all that cheap. It just does. It sounds like a lot of work. But yeah, the Levites, or the Kohanim, it sounds like they have that same last name, the Kohen. The priests, they have the same, they have like a standing, or like a commonality with the last name, and they have a standing in the community. But I mean, it's crazy to think that somebody could be held at gunpoint for trying to cross one border or another, and you just don't have the right ID. I mean, he seemed completely innocent. And if this is like a normal occurrence, I mean, think of it. He's somebody who wasn't even, he's not a Jew or an Arab. So, and he's being treated like that, at gunpoint, It kind of puts things into perspective how much tension there really might be over there on both sides. Because he knew he needed both IDs. I mean, I can't even imagine that. Like here, you forget your driver's license, they can look it up, Worst case scenario, they can look it up. But, or you just don't get into where you don't have an ID to get into. But I don't know. I'll see how far I get with some of this stuff. But I guess that's it for now. Everybody have a happy Passover. We're in the year 2026. Or according to the Jewish calendar on Chabad, 5786. Alright.